Hello and welcome to my interpersonal communication presentation. My name is Kimberly Weaver Cruz and I am a student at Liberty University. This is my final project for the course HSCO 508. Next slide, please. Today I will be discussing the following topics regarding interpersonal communication: the definition of interpersonal communication, my overarching goal, what enlarging the conversation is, a little bit about my background, my behavioral blend, some potential barriers in my interpersonal context, noise pollution, and finally my action plan. Next slide. What is interpersonal communication? Stewart defines interpersonal communication as the type or kind of communication that happens when the people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize the presence of the personal. Ramaraju defines it as the heart of interpersonal communication is shared meanings between people. We don't just exchange words when we communicate. Instead, we create meanings as we figure out what each other's words and behaviors stand for, represent, or imply. Next slide, please. My overarching goal for my interpersonal communication is to be an effective communicator by speaking with clarity and purpose and to listen with an empathetic ear. Next slide. There are 6 features that Stewart gives in helping us to understand what enlarging the conversation is and how we can do so. These are meaning, which is humans live in worlds of meaning, and communication is the process of collaboratively making these meanings. Choice, which is all communication involves choice, some of which we actively consider and others that seem almost automatic. Culture and communication are intertwined. Ethnicity, gender, age, social class, sexual orientation, and other cultural features always affect communication and are affected by it. Identities, which are some of the most important meanings people collaboratively construct. All communication involves negotiating identities or selves. Conversation, which is the most influential communication event. And nexting, the most important single communication skill. Next slide, please. A little bit about who I am and my background. I'm a 35-year-old woman of Asian American ethnicity. My mother is from Korea and my father is from Pennsylvania. Growing up biracial, I've had the advantage of both cultures instilled in me. My mother was very new to America when I was born and raised me predominantly the Korean way. This has influenced my personality greatly. My father is a 22-year Army veteran, and I spent most of my life moving around from place to place. I lived in both coasts of the U.S. and overseas in Germany and Hawaii. This type of lifestyle has also played into my identity because I, too, am serving in our country as an active duty Air Force airman. In my own 16-year career, I've again lived in both coasts of the U.S. as well as overseas in Korea and Japan. I've also deployed to Jordan and Iraq in 2003. This disciplined lifestyle with constant change is one that I share with my active duty husband and our 2 daughters, Savannah and Sophia. Next slide, please. Carbonell illustrates the 4 temperaments of human behavior, which are D-I-S-C. Each one reflects a different behavioral style. After taking the uniquely used self-assessment, I discovered that my public personality, or this is expected of me, is CIS, and my private personality, or this is me, is CS. Both are very similar personality types. Next slide. In learning about my behavioral blend, I've identified some positive attributes that have influenced my conversation. They are: I'm a loyal listener, I'm caring, I'm a rule follower, I'm a fact finder, meaning that I like to methodically evaluate and investigate the facts, and I'm a supportive person to others. I find joy in helping others and don't necessarily need to be in the limelight. On the other side of the coin, some negative attributes that influence my conversation are that I'm indecisive. I find it hard to make quick decisions, especially if I feel like I don't have all the facts. I'm shy in public settings, which makes public speaking extremely nerve-wracking for me. I can be overly cautious and have been known to hold grudges. I'm also a picky perfectionist. I'm very detail-oriented and know that this personality trait can drive others away. Next slide. The Queendom Interpersonal Communication Skills Self-Assessment highlighted that I am insightful. I am able to understand the conversation as it was intended and listen with an empathetic ear. Next slide. Some potential barriers in my interpersonal context are that I can be a rescuer in the conversation. I often feel that when someone comes to me with their problem, that I need to fix it for them by giving them advice and or taking on their problem as my own. I can also be a biased listener, in that if there were any negative past experiences with them, I am already listening at a level less than 1 or empathetic listening. Burley Allen writes that the goal is to listen at the level 1 in all situations. Red flag words are also a potential barrier to my interpersonal communication. The word whatever seems to trigger negative emotions within me. I feel that when this word is said to me, I'm being dismissed by the other person, and any control I may have had in the conversation was instantly taken away from me. I can counteract my potential barriers by not taking responsibility for others' problems. I need to realize that most people just want to vent and be listened to and not necessarily fixed. When it comes to biased listening, rather than focusing on past experiences with them, I can focus my attention on what they're presently saying and refrain from judgment. Finally, when my red flag word appears, I need to be aware of my emotions so that I don't give that word so much power over me. Next slide. Kreider, as cited by Cohen and Weinstein, had this to say about noise. Noise is a psychological concept and is defined as sound that is unwanted by the listener because it is unpleasant, bothersome, interferes with important activities, or is believed to be psychologically harmful. Noise pollution is both internal and external. Internally, it can be self-consciousness, where an individual focuses too much on themselves by thinking, do I look all right? Or are dealing with a personal problem rather than being attentive to the speaker. The time lag factor is the difference in time from speaking and listening. The average talker speaks about 200 words a minute, while the average listener hears 300 to 500 words per minute. The time in between, or lag time, can be tiresome for a listener and cause them to daydream or go off on mental tangents. Fatigue and phobias can also internally distract someone from the conversation. External noise pollution consists of a speaker's decibel level, their mannerisms and or appearance, their tone, accent, and or speed of speech, loud noises such as traffic or stormy weather, room temperature, interruptions, and a view of outside activity. A solution to noise pollution would be to concentrate on what the speaker is saying by listening at a level 1, imagining what the person is describing, asking clarifying questions, and summarizing what the speaker is saying. If the conversation can be moved to earlier in the day, that could help combat fatigue. Also, if possible, a quick survey of the environment prior to the conversation can help alleviate external pollution such as room temperature and outside activities. Next slide. My action plan for improving my interpersonal communication and achieving my overarching goal is to first recognize the flat brain syndrome. This is Peterson's theory of emotions. Being able to recognize when emotions have taken over my or someone else's ability to think clearly will help me to keep the conversation nexting. I also plan on applying the double reverse twist when someone is displaying the flat brain syndrome. This will keep me from getting caught up in their emotions. The third part of my action plan is to utilize Peterson's talker-listener card. I think this card is an amazing tool to help facilitate effective communication. It is a strong but silent third person to act as a neutral mediator between the talker and listener. The final part of my action plan is to improve my listening skill by finding common areas of interest between myself and the other person, focus my attention on ideas, make meaningful notes, hold any rebuttal that I may have, ask questions for clarification, and focus on the speaker's content, not on their delivery or any external noise pollution. Next slide. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation on my interpersonal communication and getting to know me a little more. Thank you for listening and have a blessed day.